welcome. We're going to go ahead and get started. I'm just going to introduce. This is Janice Zwygart. Before she began teaching, Janice was a stay-at-home mom with 5 sons. She is now the proud grandma of 15 as of last night. Janice now has an MA in education, focusing on reading and writing in the content area. She taught middle school, ELA, and social studies for 14 years, and 4th grade for 2. Her love of working with young writers has grown as she has found success in helping her sons and students build their own skills.
I am glad you're here. This is awesome to get to share one of my loves. Yes, I got a grandson last night. He's my 6th grandson. So we're outnumbered now. We have more granddaughters. It kills my husband. He liked having the boys. So you know a little bit about my background. In middle school, I used Nancy Atwell, we talked about writing workshops, and she changed my whole perspective as a teacher, somebody who taught writing. I saw so much success when I quit just being a writing teacher, and I created a writing workshop. I will kind of go over that today, but I'd like to get to know a little bit about you. So, I was going to have everybody move around, and classrooms aren't really super friendly for that. But how many of you homeschool 1 or 2 children? Okay. So how many of you 3 or 4? Okay, 5. Anyone more than 5? Okay, that gives me a good perspective. When it comes to writing, I'll give you how excited are your children about writing? So they love it. They can't wait to write. They beg you to let them write. Okay, which is why you're here. How about they like it? Okay, if you make them do it, they'll do it, but kind of. How many of you say they'll do it if you ask, but they probably will complain along the way? Okay. And how many of you have children who would rather do dishes? I'm so excited. I might share something else. Now, let's change that a little bit. How comfortable do you feel about teaching writing to your children? You can't wait. You are so excited when it's time to have writing. Awesome. How many of you are like, okay, it fits in with everything else? Okay. How many of you do it, but with a few complaints, at least in your head? And how many of you would rather do dishes? Okay. Awesome. We make writing really, really difficult, and it doesn't need to be. Writing should be part of every part of your curriculum. And just to share a little background, I have teacher blood. It's just in me, and my poor sons suffered greatly sometimes because of that. They were not homeschool material. I would try in the summer, and they would laugh me. They're like, yeah, mom's on thing again, she'll get over it. But what I did at the beginning was I basically wrote my kids' papers for them. They would write them, and then I would circle all over them, so they knew exactly what to change, and they would turn in papers, and they would pass. Fortunately, moms grow too, and by the end, even in college, my sons would say, will you proofread a paper? They had to only give me their very best work. I would not even look at their paper if it looked like a sloppy copy. 2, they had to read it out loud to me, and I didn't care if that was over the phone or in person. They had to read it out loud to me with a paper and pencil, and so they could mark their changes. And 3, they had to tell me what I was editing it for. So if they weren't ready for me to edit organization, they were at the stage where they wanted to see if they spelled their words right. Hopefully this isn't college, but any place in there, that is all I would grade for. And I would check that and then say, is there anything else? Because I taught writing at West Middle School in Nampa for probably 10 years. I could never teach everything. And I was always feeling like I left something out. When I went to a writing workshop, they told me what they wanted to learn. They were the ones who guided my teaching, and I could teach those concepts, I could sit down with them one-on-one and teach what they wanted. So I'm hoping to share that with you today. You have a Post-it note, and I am going to just use right here as my parking lot. If you didn't get one, you can always come up here. I've got pencils you can borrow. You wanna? Sure. And their paper here. Even move, it doesn't bother me. If you have a question, a concern, you know, something you want to know more about, please just come and post it here, and at the end, I'll go through those. Okay, so that way I can kind of see, and I'll check on them as I'm talking. So we know each other. I want to share, I love this book. And unfortunately, curriculums in schools, you find good books, and if you're not the teacher, and they're not written in a curriculum, no one uses them. So West Middle School has 30 of these books that they don't use, and I love this book about writing. Betsy Byers, raise your hand, you have all heard of Betsy Byers, I'm assuming. This is a book about writing. She finds a black snake. And so every other chapter, she writes about the snake, she writes about childhood memories, and then she writes about writing. And I would like to share just a little bit about something that she says. Here's the way I write a book. I start on the word processor, can you tell this is old, and write as much as I can, then I print it. I take what I've printed, go sit somewhere else, like the porch, read it and say, this is terrible, and start working on it. I go back to the word processor, put in the changes, and print it. I take what I've printed, go sit somewhere else, say, oh, this is still terrible, and rewrite it. I keep doing this until I say, this is not as terrible as it used to be. Then, this is getting better. And finally, hopefully, this is not bad at all. That's how I do my writing, no matter what kind it is. Short stories, essays, novels, and it's worked for 30 years. So, she writes this delightful book that for young, middle school, late grade school authors, great read aloud. She tells about creating the first skateboard in the world out of a board and 2 wheels and almost killing herself. She talks about so many funny children memories about writing what you know. And I just found it very motivating, and it was a really good place for me to start with middle school students to talk about revising, and that even people who have been published 30 plus times have to sit down and look at bad writing. You have to do bad writing before you can do good writing. All right? Right now, this is called The Moon and I by Betsy Byers. And I actually have a document that they will share a website with you, or a link, and my documents and everything I talk about will be on that if you want it. I will also give you my email address if you want me just to send you that document. See where I am. So I want to just go over some things if you want to do a writer's workshop at home. In a classroom, everyone's doing different things. They're planning their writing, they are co-working with someone, they're writing, they're revising, So you have people all over, and then they sign up for conferencing with me. And but it's pretty quiet because writing is thinking. And if I'm talking, I'm not writing. If I'm listening, I'm not writing, guaranteed. So I was pretty strict about that you had to have permission to be visiting with someone about your writing, which was fine. But when I think about homeschool, that could have 1 or 2 people, doesn't have the same dynamic, there is so much information on the internet. And I shared several really good links on my documents so that you won't have to spend tons of time looking for information. But it's such a powerful thing. You get to step back. Writing is learned the same way walking is. I knew a lady several years ago who didn't want her children to walk early. And so she would just sit them down. If they would start to, she would just sit them down. Guess what? They're all adults and they all walk. Like she wasn't mean to them, She just knew how much trouble they would be. And I guess that's, I don't even know her well, but I loved that story. You don't, and we never criticize a child who's learning to walk. I have never ever heard someone say, you know what, you are wobbling. You probably shouldn't do that. Or my son and daughter-in-law and 3 of their children live with us right now while they remodel. I'm praying for an empty nest again. There's 8 through 18 months. And sometimes he walks and his belly is clear out here and the rest of his body is clear back there. But never do we say, you got really bad posture. Like, we just don't criticize. But with writing, because every one of us writes differently, it's really easy to get into you don't have paragraphs. You didn't do this. You didn't do this. And it becomes something that by middle school, many, many children do not want to do anymore because they've had so many people write on their papers and so many people tell them how they're not good at it, they're not really willing to take a risk anymore. So, and if you've done that, forgive yourself. It's all fixable, and it's just how we learned. It's how our papers were handed back. And so, yeah, just move on and start a new leaf. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to practice writing territories. This is a Nancy Atwell tool. It's very powerful when you're going to let your student or your child write and they get to choose it. So I'm going to give you, I'm going to explain territories. If you have paper and pencil, make your own list, okay? My territories would be, and when I did it, of course, I shared it with my students, but it would be trips I took, pets I had, injuries. When I was 4 years old, I came across a board that my parents used to hold up a ping pong table, my 4th birthday, and there was a nail in it, and I bumped it and it started to fall, so this is my first memory in life. I pushed it back and it fell, and I pushed it back and it fell, and I finally thought I had it, and it hit me right here. And so I got stitches on my 4th birthday. So that's something I could write about. It's a memory I have. If I am studying ancient Egypt, maybe I have some questions. Think about the curriculum that your students or your children use, and what questions would they have? All right? Make a list. I'm just going to give you like 3 minutes of things, and you can pretend to be your child, or it can be you. What could you write about? What questions about the world do you have? What experiences have you had that you could write about? See if you can get 5 to 10 in 3 minutes. Go. this will be really hard sometimes for children because they don't realize that how valuable their experiences are. In the class for younger children, I found a book that totally addresses that, but this is something you add to. If they have a notebook where whenever they think of something they could in the future write about, but they don't have to write about it. So all the pressure is off. This is not a list that you will write about. This is, what are your thoughts? What questions do you have about the world? What are we studying? You know, I have a son who's an actuary. When he was in 7th grade, he probably would have loved to write about a math something. Like, he liked reading about mathematicians. He would have, like, I wouldn't be able to read it, but he could write it. It's a whole different language sometimes. All right, so you have your children do this. This is how you start. The writing workshop has a premise that you do mini lessons. Very, very short on some concept of writing. You can find those all over. Search mini lessons. You can do punctuation, paragraphing, capitalization. Is your brain going? Hopefully you know all the things you can teach them. You can pick something that you've noticed in the writing, or you can pick something that you just want to talk about. It doesn't matter. You could have older children teach the younger children, have them pick a concept that they need to learn about. Commas. Commas can take 20 mini lessons. Like how to use them, when not to use them. Big, like you can always teach lessons on those types of things. So that's mainly what you do, is you make sure that as they go along, and maybe it's a notebook, maybe you put a little printed page about that concept in their notebook, and they collect them. Then you need to let them write. The hardest thing to help any child with is a piece of paper that looks like that. You can't help somebody who gives you a blank piece of paper. So quick writes, that's another resource that I will give you. Quick writes are awesome. Write for 5 minutes, and if you write, I don't know what to write the whole entire time, it's okay. Because there's a connection, and I've seen it. I have not scientifically studied it. I've seen it where once you start writing and those words are coming on paper, your brain starts saying, I can do this. But until that paper and pencil connect and you're actually getting words, I got my master's in online. And I tell people that I got an MS in BS because I had to write like 82 essays. Sometimes 2 a week, usually 6+ typed pages of essay over 19 months. It's a lot of writing. The hardest part was getting started. I would just sit and stare at that computer like I care, I don't care. And as soon as I would say, fine, I'm just gonna write a bad essay. I can turn in a bad paper this time. And as soon as I would start typing in, it would be bad and I would have to pull. As soon as I started writing, I would get my inspiration. But getting that down, and that's where you need to, that's the same with other things. Who can think of another thing where until you get started, you can't do it?
Dishes.
Dishes. Yeah. Anything else? Exercise, yes. You know, you just, it's like I can't. But as soon as you make those muscles move, you can do it. And if you're willing to do it badly, like if you don't want to go to the gym because you don't look like you visualize everyone else looking, or you know, you can't do what other people do, you're not going to go. But if you go and you're your best self, and even if you do it really ugly, and you're willing to do it really badly, you can do anything. And writing is the exact same thing. Tell your children, write the worst essay you could. Show me what a bad essay looks like. I want to see the worst writing you can do. Or write me an essay about why you don't want me to write me an essay. You know, one of our middle child, he was fun. He was a challenge. And he got in trouble, and I said, I need you to write me an agreement about whatever it was he had done. I can't remember. He used the word never probably 45 times in that essay. You know, I will never, you know. But guess what? His anger was gone. It gave us something to talk about. It wasn't beautiful, but he wrote. And the more you do that, the more, it doesn't matter. You could write 20 essays. When you sit down to write that new one, your brain will lock until you start. And you have to be willing to write badly, or you can't write. Just like Betsy Myers. This is terrible. Good job. And that's what you need to say. Good job. It's not blank. So that's something to really think about. Writing is thinking. If you're going to do writing, there needs to be time. Time set aside, a place. I loved clipboards and corners. I didn't always make my students write at a desk. Go sit someplace you're comfortable. Let's go sit outside. And everyone has to be 5 feet away from someone else and just listen. I loved creating an atmosphere that built that writing was a joy and something that it was different and fun. And I hinted that they need to pick their own mistakes. If you do this, you write a list of things that they want you to check. So if capitalization is a challenge, and that's a big subject for someone who's 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, write down capitalization. You keep record of what you've talked about. Okay? Here are the rules that we talked about. You are now responsible for this. I will no longer be editing for this. You are now responsible. We've talked about it. And that's where you can go print off a worksheet, use a workbook. You've practiced the skill. This is on your checklist that you edit by yourself. And they keep a running record of the things that they can do, because you'll never run out of what you could teach them. And that's really discouraging to a young writer. If you show them the whole list of things that you're going to teach them in the next 7 years, and they'll just be like, why? I can't do it, why would I try? But when they have a list of 2 or 3 things, I will circle every word I don't know, if I don't know if I spelled it. If they're handwriting, the computer will help them if they do, they use Google Docs or Word. I will, it can be an I will statement. I will capitalize every blah, 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 blah. They know that now. Then you can start working on adding details and all those other things that we as adults want our children to put in their writing. But until they feel confident that they have certain skills and you are going to praise them if it's 5 words and they're spelled right or they're capitalized correctly, because they did it and not because they don't have good posture and they're 18 months old. They're little and they're going to learn to write. I have seen, my favorite story was a boy, first year I taught writing workshop, and his first essay that he turned in to me said, I like dogs. I like dogs because they're fun. Dogs are fun because I like them. I like to play with dogs because they're fun. Tiny little writing thing. Fast forward, 4 months later, we're doing our final writing. It's probably more like a quick write. He didn't do a lot of planning. Right. He's on the back side of his page going, I'm not done yet. That's when you feel like, and was it perfect? No. It was far from perfect. He hadn't been writing very much. He was barely starting. But was he writing? Could we work on that? Absolutely. That's the exciting thing. You have a tool. You have something. And that's what you want. You want your children to be prolific writers, communicators. They can learn all the skills as they go. And it's just if we don't have words, we can't do anything with it. One thing I do, even if I'm looking, I use COPS. You can find several acronyms for editing things. COPS stands for capitalization, organization, punctuation, and spelling. And at the bottom of the paper, I would write a tally mark. If they were to the point where they were writing, I would just put tally marks. Oh, you've got 3 capitalization errors, I see. Organization, maybe that one's kind of a little bit harder because you can't say one problem. But if you see something that, okay, there's one big correction. You've got this sentence or something. Punctuation, spelling. I don't circle it. I ask them to go back and see, can you find 3 capitalization? It's their own grammar workbook, and they wrote it. It's their own punctuation, and they did it. And you can even, like, if they want more information, you can say, I noticed that you didn't put periods on 3 sentences. this isn't a trick. You're not trying to, but you want them to reach a little bit and love their writing and own it. And that's the goal of this, is to do that. Revising. Nancy Atwell has a statement. It sounds really, really bad, so I didn't put it on my wall. But it basically says even a stupid person can learn to write if they are willing to revise and change as many times as it takes. All right? And I've heard of this, even old ladies can run marathons if they're willing to sweat and break and what can't we do if we do that? Our children need to know that bad writing is part of writing. It's just so hard to accept because we want it to look good. So when they realize that revision is part of writing, doing what Betsy said, I look at it, I say this is really bad, I go back in, and she had a word processor, so luckily you can make revisions and everything on your computer, and you print it, and you look at it, and you say, this is still really bad. What skills does that teach a child? Can you think of some skills that redoing something over and over and over again teaches them? Do they have to ever do that again in life? Yeah. How many of us have had to do it over and over again? Perseverance, determination, making your muscles move. There are so many skills that are learned by writing, okay? So to revise is not punishment. And that was the hardest thing in a classroom where I had an hour and a half, they were gone then, they were out of my hands. But to teach them, this is awesome. Can you make it better? What could you change? What would you do? Are you done with this? Are you so sick of this that you need to put this in your folder and we'll come back later? That's okay too, all right? Sometimes we can't do that with our children. I'm going to get them out later, but for children, don't make them cry when they're revising. That's not what you're trying to do. You want them to just find joy in finding the things that are not working. A conference, always have your child read the essay aloud. If it's a paragraph, if it's a sentence, because they will find some of their own mistakes. And you can say, can you pause when you think a paragraph will be? Or where you pause, make sure you have a paragraph. Where you stop, make sure you have a period. And if you don't have commas or periods, you are not allowed to breathe until you find one. You keep reading it because you told yourself there's no breathing here. So you can make it funny. You can say, wait, and you can have a copy and make sure they're reading the words that are there, because they will read the story that's in their head. And you can say, oops, would you read that again and only read the words you wrote? I'm not saying you're wrong. I just want to make sure you're happy with your words. And it's one-on-one. A conference is one-on-one. And then after they've done that, you can say, what would you like me to help you with? How can I help you with your writing? And if they've been doing grammar, or they've been reading a book, or and they're like, I just want to know if it's organized well. Then you can say, let's talk about it. Let's see what we can find. How can I help you? And they're ready for organization now. That's a big step. That will be farther down. That will be the older students before. But they're ready. If they're saying the word organization, they're ready. If you do that when they're in 3rd grade, and they're not even asking about it, they're just gonna, it's gonna go over their head. We want to meet them right where they are and celebrate that that's where they are. I loved conferencing. I loved having young people read their stories to me. When I was tutoring, I can't tutor online for Tech Prep right now one-on-one because I had this huge influx of parents. And so I set up folders and gave instructions, and I help with the PEG writing, which I will talk to you about. But I would always have them read out loud. Read your essay to me. And I would have it on Google Docs, and I would see what they were doing. And it was fun to say, wow, you do this really well. This part, what would you like to work on today? And they always had something. They didn't just say, oh, I think it's perfect. Because none of us think we're perfect, not even a child. All right. And then publishing. What do you do when they're done? Have any of you published your children's work, found ways to do that? No? Have you? There are tons of sites that you can. There are youth magazines. Of course, research them. You do not want them to have to pay or buy a magazine. But now with the internet, there are some great places that will let you publish. A family newsletter, a website that's for your family that they get to do that. Have them set up something where their stories are published, where they can scan it if they've drawn pictures to go with it. Making a book. Who doesn't love to look at a child's writing saved in a book? And they will keep that forever. I got lots of papers. 5 kids, you know, that's a lot of papers. And school, they do a lot of paper, a lot of worksheets, a lot of stuff coming home. Nothing got saved except writing. Original writing is what I treasured because it really spoke to who they were at that age. And I could see their handwriting, you know, you could see it change. And I loved that. A math worksheet, showing it to them 10, 20 years later, it's not going to really, well, okay, Mom. You know, but when they read their writing and it really is a connection. Find a way to celebrate their writing. It doesn't have to be perfect to be published. And it will be better next time. And that's so hard to remember. I know. We want to keep going. All right. Any questions for me right now? I honestly happy to answer. Yes.
So my 3 youngest kids are super resistant to writing and reading. They can, but it's so painful. And I'm a writer and a reader, and so to me, I don't understand, like, how can you not like to do this? My older 2 loved it, and everything flowed.
Okay.
So what can I do to push my kids off into the...
You will like this. Couple questions. Choose one of your children.
Okay.
Okay. He or she.
She.
What is she interested in? Like if she has unstructured time, what does she like to do?
She likes the cartoon, like comic strips.
You've got it.
What, really?
A graphic novel? You'll make $10 million when you're an adult. Okay?
Okay.
Take that. You like to draw, and you write the captions for them. Okay? Think about it. Can she do any of the territories that you wrote in a graphic novel?
Yes.
And that's where she is right now. Will the state accept that as a ISAT performance task? No. Okay. They're not going to be thrilled to get that. However, she is on a journey of expressing using pictures and writing. The exact same process goes. What could you do a comic book about? What could you do a graphic novel about? Come up with territories. Here's some time to do that. I'm going to value that. And now let's learn about punctuation and quotation marks and all those things in mini lessons. Now you read your story out loud to me, and you have to make corrections. And now, what are you ready for next? And if you're doing social studies or science, and she can do a graphic novel about it, and then you can say, would you take what you've done and write me a paragraph? You've already done the graphic novel. Can you turn that into a paragraph?
Okay.
I value what you've
That's how
done.
we switch
Yeah.
into, okay.
That's what I would do.
Okay.
Honestly, of course, you will have to modify anything I say with your child, but what you want to do is value where they are right now, and celebrate that, because she is communicating with writing. And it's really hard for me. I brought Garfield books to my 4th grade class, and I had so many kids that would read nothing else. And I had to finally, it bothered me. It was like, you need to be. So I slowly got those back home. But it's a place to start. And reading and writing do go hand in hand. So if she's reading graphic novels and writing original graphic novels, then maybe you can find those same subjects, because graphic novels are in everything.
Mm-hmm.
So find a similar subject in a book that's not graphic, and see if she would read that. You know, just introduce, can you read a chapter of this and tell me? I need a review. I really want to know what you think of this. That's how I always got students in. Either that or I'd tell the boys, there's a really good basketball game in chapter 7. So yeah, there wouldn't be, but by then they liked by then they liked the book. So, but yeah, I like that if you just take her where she's at, and then your goal is to challenge her and put little teeny things in front of her to see if she's ready to bite yet. You know, you hold a 1-year-old walking, 2 people hold them, and if they just sit down, you go, okay, go walk around the couch, and you know, but you don't make them, like you don't push them to do it. You just say, this is where you are, and she will do fine. If she's doing that, she's writing. So, anything else? Yes.
I don't know if this is jumping the gun, but where would you start at the beginning? Like when you're just first, like we're worked on punctuation, capitalization, all of those things, but I have totally held back writing because I know they weren't ready until like right now, and they're older. So
Okay.
But where would you start older kids, late elementary?
I would do the territories.
Yeah.
I would find out what they want to write about. Have them keep a writing notebook, so that, and something maybe that you put papers in and out so that you can progress and they can see their progression. I would, if they haven't done a lot of writing, I think, yes, we want our kids to understand all of those lists of things, but then it takes the joy out of writing when you're so afraid to make a mistake. So I would pretend like they've never learned any of those and just say, can you write one of these? Eventually, they'll need to write to a prompt. Eventually, when you go to a job, the boss never says, would you just write me something about whatever you want? No, they have specific things, but they're not there yet.
Sure.
So, can you write me a paragraph? We just studied ancient Greece. Let's do a quick write and write all the things that you know that we talked about. And we're going to collect those, count how many words you wrote at the end of 5 minutes. And we're going to graph that and see if you can write more words if we do this. And here's your subject. We just did social studies, studied Paul Revere. What do you think it would have been like to be Paul Revere's horse? Like little teeny writing prompts, and then if they're older, just require a little bit more. The goal is really you want to have them do 5 paragraphs. Introduction, conclusion, body paragraphs. Find graphic organizers. The PEG program I will talk about has tons. You can find them. I like to do the Google ones because I use Google Docs a lot, and then they're editable. Some of them are PDF, and then they can't do anything on them. So if you find ones that are editable, either Word or Google, then your kids can type in them or you can print them off either way and have them write. Have them organize their writing. Graphic organizers are a great way to help them see a big picture of what they're writing. And there are 100 zillion types. So, yes?
Do you think there's a difference for kids? I mean, I certainly have my personal preference, but I'm finding that my kids are super different than me. And do you think there's a difference when we're talking about writing and the act of writing, as far as if we say sit down in front of Google Docs and just write, but you're typing? Is there a difference as far as learning and progressing if you're allowing them to do that versus writing on paper?
I don't think so. The dead brain comes for both, and the action of doing it are your children. Some of them, like typing and technology is part of their lives. My little 18-year-old grandson will never, like at 2 or 3, they would say, Grandma, can I pull up this? And I'd be, I don't know where it is, what's right here, I mean, they're very comfortable with that. So I don't think there's a difference. I think learning cursive, if you're doing that, is helpful for them to read other people's writing. I don't know that the act of cursive writing is going to do it could, and I don't have research, but that's what I've seen is that people who don't know any cursive can't read cursive, and that's a disability for them. Writing it might work. It's just, like you said, everyone's different, but I don't think there's a big difference. Yes? No.
Go ahead. So I am with you on keeping writing fun, and my kids get gross and they just do everything, because I feel like if you teach them this parts of speech and all of that stuff, it teaches them to second guess themselves, right? But now I'm getting to the point where my oldest is 14, And I know that with standardized testing and things, she's going to be held back if she can't say all the technical, parts of speech stuff. Like, how do you incorporate the not fun stuff in that they need to know for testing
Like I
and
said,
such?
those mini lessons are really helpful.
Uh-huh.
Using their own writing to find the prepositional phrases, to find the parts of speech, print it out, say, how many nouns do you have in here? Let their own, can you find it? Do you have, like some writing is so plain and they don't do that. Can you find a place that you could add adjectives or adverbs? Here's what they are, here's the mini lesson. Your lesson is to pick one of your pieces of writing and find it. Pick a page out of a book you like. We'll copy it and you can find it. So it's just mini lessons, I think a little bit at a time, and as they're ready, it will stick more and more. You do have to do those more than once. A mini lesson is not a lifetime commitment, but it does build a little bit at a time as they're ready, and if they don't use it, I don't know about you, but I've had a lot of computer lessons. Like Word, how to use it. And then I go 6 months later and I'm like, I know it will do this, but I have no idea where to go. I'm gonna have to go back and search it again. And then we get mad at our children. That's one of the hardest parts about being a classroom teacher, is I saw that happen a lot. We're expecting our students to be tested on things that we studied 6 months ago. And we're going to penalize their score because they don't remember this. Think about ourselves. We're way harder on our kids sometimes. Lost pencils, all those things that we do all the time, we get mad at children for doing. Anyway, back row.
I just have a question as far as like professionals, you said let them choose, like, oh, they wrote this thing today, you're gonna just grade them, just spelling and punctuation method or whatever. What if their writing is like atrocious? Like, even if it's laid out completely backwards, makes no sense, you're just grading their spelling or punctuation.
Because what are they ready for? And even with spelling, I say circle the words that you think are misspelled. And it's okay, don't stop when you're writing, don't stop to correct your spelling. It's okay if there are red squiggles all over. So, yes.
So at what point do you, like, is there an age or just something you look for where they're ready to finally have all their stuff checked properly? Or?
My thought is that if they're confident in the spelling part, or the capitalization is a great first start because it's pretty concrete what's capitalized and what's not. Or complete sentence, which is where that parts of speech would come in. Look at your writing. Do you have this? Go to beginnings of sentences. If every word starts with the, every sentence starts with the, that's a place to start. So look at it and say, what could the next mini lesson be on? And what could they do? I've seen horrible writing. Like, I don't even know what you were writing about. However, there's something good in there. Maybe there's a great description. Maybe there's something that shows the light in that child. And you look at that and you take that and you say, I would love other people to be able to read this. But right now we're not there. So we're going to be revising this a few times. And again, you can trash a piece of writing and start something new. But we're going to take this and see if we can get it so someone else could read it and know what you're trying to communicate. And you just, if a baby, I keep going back there, if a baby doesn't walk till 18 months, they don't ask him that in college. And they don't say if you walk at 9 months, you get to go someplace sooner. If they write, and they write well, at some point in their lives, that's because they valued it. If they don't value it, you cannot drag it out. You cannot make someone do something they're not ready for. So, yes?
A personal observation on fear of making mistakes and revisions. They read things, books, stories, whatever, that have already been through those steps, and they don't realize that. They think what they're writing is supposed to look like what they're reading, and then they get really frustrated because it doesn't. So we need to kind of say, hey, or somehow show, model that, because she's saying she's doing it over and over, but it's really powerful.
And there are other things in life that have to be done over and over again. And you can tie that. Remember when you learned how to ride a bike? How many times did you fall down? This essay is exactly the same. Yes?
It occurs to me it would be really beneficial to model that ourselves. So do you ever write along with your
Yes.
Like I'm thinking maybe I should be writing with my kids when I'm making them write and show them
Yes.
that that was terrible.
Yeah.
Which I, you know.
No, anything you do, absolutely, that's a really good point. Reading your writing to them out loud and sharing and saying, would you guys listen and see if I do a good job describing this? And you don't need to lower yourself and say, check my spelling. But listen, and I want some feedback about this part. And turn them into part of your closest group. You're all growing. Like I said, every time I write something, it takes me I just am so picky because writing will never be done. Have any of you finished something that you thought was perfect? Because I like to talk to you. I'm done when I'm done. When they take it and they're going to take it out of my hands, I'm done. Until then, I keep reading and re-questioning and asking. And what do we expect our kids to do? Turn something in when they haven't had time to look at it and do that. So be compassionate. Writing it's not hard, it's just a process. I want to go through one more thing, and then if we have time, I can answer more questions. Favorite tools. How many of you are parents with tech prep students this year? Okay. PEG, P-E-G. It's being offered free, and it's not being used. They barely 2 weeks ago gave me the sign-in information and asked me to monitor this program. It has the whole process. It has graphic organizers, it has prompts, it has a place where you can put in your own prompt. Yes?
Well, so my question about that, it's third grade and up, correct? Is what it's for. But what if my third grader is not really writing on a third grade level? That's why, I saw it, and I have a third grader, and I thought that's really great, but it seemed like it was way above where we're at, and so that's why I hadn't used it. So I didn't know if it was appropriate for her to use it all, because it seems like if it's third and up, it seems like it might be above her grade level. Right. Why would I bother? But I would totally tap into it.
It gives you feedback. It will give feedback no matter what level you're writing at. Okay. So I've had one family has actually done the writing for me. I contacted them because they had shown an interest. And I said, would you have your child follow this lesson? And it gave so much feedback. It highlights things. It has sentence structure. You might want to have a shorter sentence. And then it scores each part of the 6 traits of writing, and it gives them lessons that they might need for that. And it's a computer doing it. It's not mom.
Oh, so that's why I haven't used it, because I assumed a computer wouldn't do the job.
Nope. How much research they did to create this, they gave way better feedback, and such good lessons. There are writing lessons right in there that could be the mini lessons. Contact me, ask your mentor teacher who I am. I will be glad. They will sign you up. We've had to steal some from Utah, some seats, but we'll do it. If you'll use it, we will do it. It's an amazing program. Next year I hope to do an online teaching thing, how to use it, what it looks like, and I really want to encourage people to use this.
So my daughter, on her next essay that she's writing, you can pick what you want to write?
There are, yes, choose your own expository, informational. It gives you different kinds of narrative, and then you could just plug it in there. Yes?
We've used it, and I guess my opinion is a little different.
Okay.
We found that the feedback isn't useful, and so we thought, because I signed up my one, but then I let my 2 junior high and high schoolers put theirs in. Okay, put yours in as an 8th grade and see. And I've had them write it, and then they copy and paste it into there. But not only does it messes up their formatting, and then it won't take their formatting if you try to copy and paste it from a Google Doc.
So you have to
but
type
then
it right in there?
all of them mediocre on everything. And so I haven't found it does anything useful because they say you got a 70 on all these 6 different traits, so do these 6 lessons. But it doesn't give any useful information.
So
that's my opinion.
Because the 2 children who did it, they were both very average, but looking at it, there weren't a lot of detail. I would have probably scored it similarly. My thought is if you use it and if we can improve it, I think it's an awesome tool to motivate. And like I said, don't ever let them go in and try to fix everything. If it's just the sentence structure, pick one thing that they need to fix. Say, can you put in this? And then rescore it. It will score multiple times. And then see if you can get there. Would it
just
not
my
do that?
opinion.
No, that's fine.
It doesn't matter if it's my junior or my third grader putting it in, it's always mediocre, and it doesn't matter how much they change it, it's always mediocre.
Okay. That is
So
so
we
good to
haven't
know.
found
Because I
that
don't want to
it-
encourage, yeah.
It does, I mean, they can improve their paper, find 10 mistakes, and it doesn't improve their score.
Okay. That is really
So it is kind of frustrating for mine, so we quit using it.
Okay, and I don't blame you. It's, like I said, what I saw, I really liked, but it's been 2 kids' papers.
We didn't use their writing prompts. We did what she was asking, write your
Right,
own
only
essay,
do it
copy,
in
paste it
it.
in.
Okay, but it shouldn't, yeah, I don't know that it would be different. Maybe if you do drop. It is time for lunch. You are welcome to go. I have a couple more things if you want to stay and listen to the programs. There's not a class after, right?
No.
So if I keep them a few minutes, the line for pizza will be long anyway, right? Another program is Learn Zillion. It's all one word, and it has little classes that you can do. It is a videotape. They are real teachers who are teaching a concept. So it might be organization, it might be something. I wouldn't use it all the time, but it's free and it might help with a mini lesson. I just found this one. I really liked it. It's called Quill, Q-U-I-L-L. It's free. You sign up as a teacher. I read what to do if you're homeschooling or if you want to do it as a parent, and your children are your students. But you can assign lessons to them, and I spent maybe half hour on it, looking, trying out the different things. A lot of interesting things in there, and they're all geared for writing. So it's something to look at. I like using Google Docs rather than Word with children because it saves automatically, and there's nothing more frustrating than typing for 2 hours and then your document gets deleted and then you don't ever want to do it again, not in this life. The one thing, if you are signed into PEG, they have lots of graphic organizers that you can fill in and that can help. You can also find those online other ways. So, and like I said, if you are not, Tech Trip, I know they're going to send you a link to all the handouts and all the videos of the classes. If you're not, and you want my email address, you can ask for the hyperdoc that I did that has all of this information on. You guys have been awesome. Thank you. I hope you learn to love writing with your children because it's the best thing ever. Nothing else you're doing will show what's inside of them, like they're writing well. Yes?
I don't know what a graphic organizer is.
It could be, it's a way to plan. So it might be the sandwich graphic organizer where you have an introduction. There are pros and cons. It's just a way to organize so that your writing is more organized when you actually do it. Yeah, it's a pre-writing activity.
And there was a Venn diagram,
a whole bunch.
Yeah,
the Venn diagram, the circles, what's the same and what, that's a type of.
Huh? Yeah. Yeah, there are tons.
So, just as I'm listening to you and I'm trying to encapsulate what you're saying about like these writing workshops and all these things, and I'm trying to think about what that would look like in my homeschool with 4 kids, 1 in high school all the way down to a 3rd grader, some special needs mixed in the middle. And I'm literally trying to picture, like, I'm looking at like these mini lessons and I'm picturing myself standing in front of my little whiteboard, which gets me excited. My kid's grown, but
Yeah.
like standing in front of my little whiteboard and everybody has their little clipboards. And I'm like, here's our little mini lesson today, and after this, I've set aside, this is me brainstorming while you've been talking.
Absolutely.
Then I've set aside like some little cookies in these 4 corners, and I want you to take your clipboard and your pen, and you already have your territories, like maybe they're laminated on the clipboard under your paper, and then you take your clipboard and I put cookies in these 4 stations, and I want you to go to your cookies and munch on your cookie and look at your territories and write about something.
And I'm going to play classical music for studying, and it's not going to be a horrible thing. And you can just sit there, but you need to try. Like if all you write about is every random thought you have, it's okay.
Right.
To start. Like eventually you do want them to value that time when you say, go find a place in the house and work on your essay.
Right.
But
So I'm thinking of like these, so twice a week we're going to have these little writing workshops, and we're going to do these things all together, and then you're going to go off and do this, and then I'm going to have a little conference with them about some of the things, like I'm thinking small right now, right?
Yes.
I'm going to have a little conference with them about what we wrote and what we learned and what can you improve on and what would you like to write about on a bigger assignment.
Yeah.
Am I on the right track?
You're on the right track. And not only that, they want to share it with you. So the thought that, maybe not the first time, but eventually it's like, oh, she really is going to listen to what I wrote, and she's going to give me some feedback that I'm ready for. and I'm the boss, and I want to have something to share with her. And they can share with each other. You can say, you two share with each other before you bring it to me. I want you to do the best you can before you bring it to me. 'Cause otherwise, I don't know what you need to learn. You know, if you just scribble on your, I don't know what you're ready for, but if you do your best, I don't care where that is, then bring it to me and we'll conference. And you'll celebrate whatever they are, and you'll celebrate that they still have things to work on. So, I think what you've got in your head is perfect.
Okay.
Yeah. They probably really like the cookies as much.
I was gonna say the cookies are just bribery at this point.
Yeah, and it is, there will be kids who are very resistant, but it's only because they haven't connected. It's not because they don't have things in themselves to share. They definitely, if you have to, and that'll be in the younger class, if you have to let them tell you what to write, and you take dictation, if they use Google Voice, and they say it to start with, it's okay. Because Google Voice is going to mess up royally. Okay? And they're going to have to do some editing. You are going to write down exactly what they say. They have to tell you where the periods are. And if they don't, they're going to have to revise. So it doesn't matter wherever they are, you know they have stuff in there they want to share. No child doesn't. And this is the only way that's going to happen. So I congratulations, you've got a really good idea.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it'll work. So
Thank you.
yes,
Thank you.
welcome.